views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Episode 2 of The Ram with Coach Gaitley. Welcome back, everyone. Jackson Heil, joined by my partner and the mayor, Jimmy Sullivan. Jimmy, up and down season thus far for Fordham in the first month. 3-5 record. They've won 3 out of the last 4. Plenty to get to in what's been an active first month.
Certainly has, and Fordham got off to that slow start. Started 0-4. Like you said, they've won 3 out of the last 4. Just got back from the Bahamas. Had an exciting win there over Lehigh on a last-second shot by Caitlin Downey. Can't wait to get into all of it with Coach Gaitley and the players as well. Should be a fun show.
Plenty to look forward to in the rest of the month of December. But first, we're going to take a look back with head coach Stephanie Gaitley. Welcome back to The Ram with Coach Gaitley. Pleasure to be joined by the one and only head coach Stephanie Gaitley. Coach, thank you for coming on once again.
My pleasure.
Coach, you mentioned an active first month of the season for you guys, 3-5, that murderer's row of an out-of-conference schedule. How would you assess the first month? Can you kind of break it up into 2 weeks with the 0-4 start and now kind of the much better run of 3-4?
Well, it was an exciting start to have the first ever sellout. I mean, it was an electric game at Notre Dame, against Notre Dame, and fought to the wire. I mean, down 2 with 14 seconds to go, left it all out there. I think, in my own opinion, I think we were on a Notre Dame hangover against Columbia. I think we kind of thought we were going to walk in and play a very good Columbia team, and I think we realized real quickly that can't happen. And then, of course, then we go to Penn State, Big Ten team on the road, and they had just come off a tough loss, so we knew we were going to get their best shot. And then we play my alma mater, Villanova, who was also in 3, and we knew somebody was going to break out of the ranks there, and they had a couple kids that really caught fire. So the first couple weeks were tough. It was a great learning experience, but I think now we're ready to move on.
What specifically, Coach, and you just kind of alluded to it, did you learn about that team through the early adversity, through starting 0-4, and now you've been able to turn it around and win 3 out of the last 4?
Well, I think the biggest thing was getting over that hump in Northeastern. Just having done this a long time, 34 years, it's that first game is always that monkey, right? And especially with the schedule that we face, again, you got new leaders, you've got 2 freshmen in the lineup, you got a new point guard, so there's a lot of things to adjust to. And I think once we got past Northeastern, I think we all took a deep breath and exhaled, and then we went down and to this point played our best game of the year against Charlotte, a really good Charlotte team whose only loss is to us. After our game, they went and beat Boston College by 20, So, and not only did we beat them, I mean, we beat them pretty well. I mean, but again, we played great defense, our best defensive effort, but we also shot the ball really well. Then you fast forward again, like coming back from Bahamas, we open up against a top 25 team in Arkansas, fought hard, obviously didn't play mistake-free. I think in order to steal a game against a nationally ranked team, you need to be able to focus on the details for 40 minutes. We weren't focused for 40 on the details. Did we play hard? Yeah. Passion with a purpose. But we had the passion, we didn't have the purpose. You need to have passion and purpose to knock off teams of that caliber. Then play a Lehigh team who had one loss, a tough loss the night before, a lot of disputes going on in that game because Lehigh was tied with 6 seconds, I guess, or 4 seconds, 2.5 seconds to Ball State. Kid walks twice and then takes 2 dribbles and throws up an air ball, and the kid throws it up in the air and they count it, but there's no monitors down there. So now we have to walk in. They now have a day off. We're coming off against a very physical game against Arkansas with Lehigh coming off a day off. So out of all the teams there, we had the least recovery time. Mm-hmm. So I was concerned about, how we were going to be just recovery-wise. Plus, there's some kids with nice sunburns, so I was also concerned about that. But I thought we responded well to the challenge. Did not play particularly well, but, every preseason you go through something, or you like to think as a coach you're going to go through something that you can fall back once you get to conference play. We did that. We played a really good Arkansas team, and we found a way to win against a really good Lehigh team. So that was a great building block for us.
It was pretty much universally agreed upon that the officials had a rough weekend in the Bahamas. But focusing on the Lehigh game that you mentioned, I mean, 17 seconds left. Lehigh has yet to foul in the quarter.
Yeah.
And they used 3 fouls. You get the ball 5.8 seconds left. Did you think you were going to get a shot off in that game before Caitlin buried the game winner?
Well, you know what makes it difficult? And that's the first time probably in my career that we've had the ball so late, 17 seconds, and the team has 5 fouls to give. You feel you're going to be in pretty good shape. The other thing that made it difficult was their extended zone gave us a lot of troubles because you can't dictate who you're going to want to get the shot. because it's not like man where you can say, all right, we're going to run this and this is what we're looking for. You just got to, Anna reacted on instincts and found Caitlin. But one thing we talked about, and Bree did a good job of this a couple of years ago when we played St. Joe's, we knew they had a foul to give, and Bree just catch and chucked it, and that's something I think we learned from this game, and we talked about today reviewing film of like, guys, we're in that situation again. If you see them like taking an intentional foul, go in the shooting motion, so that way you get to the line and make it a three-point shooting foul. So there's a lot of things gained from that situation, and to find a way to win against a really good team not playing particularly well is a great boost in confidence.
Coach, how much growth have you seen out of this team defensively? You started a little bit slow on that end, but in the last 4 games, giving up under 60 points per game, including an Arkansas team that came in essentially averaging 90 points per game. How much growth have you seen from your team there?
I've seen a lot of growth. I still think that, the consistency would probably be the big word. I just don't think we're consistent enough, and that comes in the area of communication. We got to do a better job communicating. Part of it was freshmen. Sarah and Anna didn't have particularly great defensive games, I felt, against Lehigh, just because, they're freshmen. So it's going to be up and down for those kids. I need to rely on the leaders with Kendall and Bree and Caitlin being the focal point. Caitlin being the 5 player is basically what we refer to as our traffic cop. She's got to be able to clean up everything and be able to keep everybody moving and knowing exactly what we're doing. So, slowly but surely, and I go back to, and it was funny, I was reminded by Mary that at this point last year, I had said to that team, they were the worst defensive team I had ever coached. And then look how we finished. So I feel the same thing with this team. I think once they get to understand, Meg Jonason's a great example. Meg has really started to clean up her defensive game, and she's getting much better at the details. So I think once everybody buys in and understands what the details are and puts that playing hard with playing smart, then we become even more difficult defensively.
You mentioned your 2 freshmen, Sarah Carpel and Anna DeWolf. How do you feel like they have progressed in the first month of their college careers? Now you're starting backcourt.
We went down to Charlotte, and if you had told me we would have won going away with, Sarah not be on the court that much, I would have kind of been surprised. But, we had some kids that really had great games. Caitlin shot extremely well, and then Anna had 25 points. So we had, I think, we had 3 with Bree, Caitlin, and Anna double figures, and then Kendall had an outstanding rebounding game and assists 6 to 1, and so everybody played a great floor game. But I think again, freshmen up and down. I thought, Anna learned, I think, against Lehigh, she can't play with the ball that much against that trap. You can't try to split people off the dribble. You got to be able to understand this isn't high school anymore. They're bigger, faster, stronger. You can't catch the ball with one hand. So details, but that's all part of the growth process for them. With Sarah, again, trying to split people and not going off 2 feet, everything's off 1 foot, 90% of your shots are off 2 feet. So details that they're just learning because they're young.
Speaking of that growth that you just talked about, how much do you think it's going to help your team to play some of the teams that you have? A really good Notre Dame team, Arkansas and Lehigh, both really good teams down in the Bahamas. How do you think that tough schedule is going to help you guys down the road?
I think it helps us immensely. I think it proved itself last year, because what happens now is Arkansas, I think, was one of the toughest guards to have as a coach, because they had 4 kids that could get downhill quick and that really could shoot and drive. That's a hard matchup. You usually have teams that are shooters and you can close out hard, or they're drivers and you can close out soft. But when you have somebody that's a scorer and you got to really be prepared when you have 4 of them, that's a hard thing. So for our kids to have that experience and then go against a very long and big Lehigh team at every position, I think that experience, once we get to conference play, we would have probably have faced anything that we'd be seeing during the season.
Coach, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have you on later in the show for our On the Court and Looking Ahead segment. Coming up next, our first edition of The Lineup. Don't go anywhere. Time for The Lineup, first edition of this segment this year. Excited to be joined by the 3 captains of this year's team: redshirt junior Bree Kavanaugh, junior Kendall Harriman, and sophomore Caitlin Downey. Guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Great to have you. And let's assess the start of the season for you guys. We asked Coach Gaitley the same thing, but how would you guys assess the first month of the season, starting with Bree?
The first month of the season, I think we learned a lot, especially with having our freshmen on the court, because as Coach said, it's very different having a new point guard and, Caitlin at the 5 and now Kendall at the 4. Just kind of getting adjusted to new positions and getting used to playing with our freshmen.
Yeah, I would say a little bit of a rocky start, but then again, we have to look at the competition we're playing. We're not playing any easy teams by any measure.
No cupcakes.
Yeah. But I think it's just a big learning curve, I think, for everyone. You know, having freshman point guards has been a big change for us. But I think everyone's just getting on the same page. We're really trying to finalize our identity before we're heading into conference play.
Kendall, how about you?
I guess like Bree and Caitlin pretty much said it all, but also, yeah, rocky start. We were just learning. It's just a learning process from now on, moving forward. And yeah, our freshmen still learning. I'm still learning as well as a junior, I guess. Yeah, being in that new position, the 4 spot. Yeah, otherwise.
We'll start over here for this one. I guess you guys talked about the learning curve. You guys are all captains this year. How much of a learning curve has that been for you guys, taking on maybe more leadership roles on the team?
Yeah, I think Ellen Mary made it look easy last year. But I think it's anything but that. It's just being comfortable saying the uncomfortable things, and just being able to hold people accountable and just making sure you're bringing it every day for your teammates.
Mm-hmm. Being what's the word? Being the role model in the team. Mm-hmm. That's a big part of it, especially for our freshmen. And like what Caitlin said, being okay with like your team being frustrated with you, because you, as a captain, you know what's best for the team, and whatever coach says is right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Kendall and Caitlin. You know, you always have to be consistent, and you know, like Coach always says, like you cannot take a day off. Like you're a captain, you got to bring it every day, and you got to make sure your teammates bring it every day, and make sure you hold yourself and them accountable as well.
So when you're off to an 0-4 start, and especially with a young team that you guys have mentioned, what's the biggest thing for you guys with your teammates just to keep the confidence level high, especially when you go up against teams like Notre Dame and Penn State and Villanova? What's the biggest key to like keeping that momentum high even after such a slow start?
I would say just staying positive. I mean, because if you know the young players see that you're not positive or not confident, then they're going to feed off of that. Whereas if you're upbeat, kind of like, hey, you know what, we got the next one. I mean, we're playing hard games, but you know, focus on what we can control, which is our effort, attitude, and focus on the details. Then everything will be great. Otherwise, like I said, if you're showing, if you're down or you're showing that you're angry, then they're going to feed off of that, and it's going to be negative.
And Caitlin, you're someone who's very vocal in practice, so is that something that you try to keep up this entire time, even when you do go through struggles like that?
Yeah, it's definitely hard when if you're not playing good for yourself, you have to be there for your team, but it's just going through the highs and lows together. No one separates during those times. Otherwise, then the teams can pick apart those weaknesses. So staying together, being the vocal leader, even when it's tough for yourself, is just really important for others, especially the freshmen. I know that was big for me last year.
Moving now to more on-the-court stuff, Kendall, I wanted to ask you, you're off to a great start this year, 12 points, 8 rebounds, had a double-double in the Lehigh game with 19 and 13. What do you think has been the biggest reason for your growth and that output early in the season?
I guess like what I said before and what Caitlin and Bree saying, just being that role model. If you do something, if you walk the talk, that's definitely going to help the team out. Because I know before this, I used to always get mad at myself for making mistakes, and I would always put my head down. That is something that we do not want. If you put your head down, that definitely will transfer to other teammates as well. Some people might push you for, encourage you instead of, but others might take it. It's like, oh, if she feels that way, I should feel that way too. Just like being positive, like what Bree said, being positive.
Before we wrap up, Caitlin would be remiss not to ask you about the chaos that went down in the Bahamas. I mean, you're responsible for every good call I have. So thank you for that, first of all. But take us through the emotions. You get that ball from Anna about, 25, 30 feet from the basket. What's going through your head when that ball's in the air?
Well, initially the play was to set a flare screen for Bree, and I didn't see anybody to really hit on the screen. So I was like, I guess I have to float wide, and I wanted to be further enough away where the defense couldn't swarm me pretty quickly. And as soon as that ball left my hand, I just was like, please, God, just let this one go in for us. And luckily, it felt good going in. It was a quick shot. But, yeah, it was a really good feeling to get that one down.
Guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. They'll stay with us right here and stay with us as well as we get set to go on the court with the one and only Isis Young. We'll be right back.
Hello, what's going on? I'm Isis Young back here with On the Court. I'm joined by head coach Stephanie Gaitley. What's going on, coach?
I'm doing great.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
And then her 3 captains. We've got Bree, Kendall, and Caitlin. So today we're going to analyze the pick and roll. Guys, I'm going to ask you, who is your go-to when you think of best people to run the pick and roll? Go.
I'll take the WNBA route. I'll take Natasha Cloud and Elena Deladon. T. Cloud's able to come off the screen if she draws two. She's able to pass to Deladon for a pop or for the roll. And not only that, but if two go to Deladon, she's able to knock down that shot. So she's really good at reading those screens.
Okay, huge fan of T. Cloud. Represent the A10 out there. Kenny?
I guess I'm just going to go old school with this. I Stockton and Malone.
Oh, wow, Kenny, throwing it back there. Okay, look at you. Keith?
I'm going to go Phoenix Suns with Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire.
I'm a fan of both of
good
those.
ones, yeah.
All right, Coach, so let's get into analyzing this pick and roll. Let's start with the defensive end because I know you're all about defense. You're an all-ball defender. What's the best way to guard a pick and roll, or the ways that you teach it?
Well, typically our rules, depending on the personnel we have on the court, if we're playing with four guards, we pretty much switch guard-to-guard screens, and if we don't give up a size advantage, So we like to switch 1 through 4. It doesn't always have to be that way. It depends how big their 4 is, because the size and the strengths of their, whether they can shoot or not, has a lot to do with how we're going to defend.
Okay, now let's say that we're diagramming a 1 and 5 screen, right? So Bree maybe is playing Kenny as the point guard, and Keeks is the 5 setting the screen, and we're saying Kenny is a shooter. How are we defending that pick and roll? And if you guys want to set up.
All right, so there's a couple. So Kenny's setting the screen and Kiki's defending it.
Yeah, either
Okay.
one. Yep.
All right, so Kenny, you're setting the screen right here, and I'm guarding here, and you're coming to set the screen on.
Yeah.
Kenny's setting the screen. Your defense. So for us, if I know that she's a shooter, we might what we call jam it. If there was a shooter, I would probably jam it, which means she's going to make sure that she doesn't let her roll. And my job is, if Bree is a driver, is I'm just going to get under that screen.
Okay.
I'm going to push her this way because I'm going to get under and to the angle on that screen.
Okay.
Because what we say, the other thing that we would do, especially if this is a shooter, and Bree's a shooter, okay, we're going to, again, when you're going over, you got to get as close as possible to the player you're guarding, and I'm going to fight over that screen. She's going to help on any drive, but she can't go too far because this kid can pop. So Bree's got to really, she turns the corner and is able to go, then we're going to probably have to switch it.
Okay.
Right? We do on wing screens, we do what we call is ice or down it. Some people refer to it.
Yeah.
So if I'm guarding, I'm going to, and especially if I know that she's a shooter, so she might set a different screen, a reverse screen. We're going to push her and not now allow her to use the screen, but if she's able to get downhill, we're just going to go right into a switch, because my philosophy there is I'll at least keep the big on the perimeter and not let her roll.
Okay, I understand. So now let's flip it to the other side where we've got Bree coming off the screen. What's the best way to set up a screen? If you're trying to get your defender caught, get loose, be able to either drive or shoot, which ways do you teach to set up the screen?
First thing is wait for your screen.
Okay.
One of the biggest problems with young guards is they have a tendency to go too quickly, and that sets up an illegal screen. So if I know Kendall's guarding Bree, and we have 2 different screens. We have screens in our offense where you actually go and plant the screen. So our philosophy is I want to get lower than her shoulder, and I want to split her leg. So that way she has to make a decision. Because if I don't set a good screen, she's just getting over. Or if I come too high, she's just getting under it. So I want to split it so she has to make a decision. Her job as the ball handler, she's not necessarily just watching the original defender. She's watching, if Caitlin's guarding me on that screen, she's watching what Caitlin's doing. If Caitlin shows hard, okay, and she knows I'm a shooter,
Right.
okay, she's going to know that she can attack it, okay, and she wants to draw 2 defenders. So as she's trying to get through, she's trying to draw 2 defenders, take at least 2 dribbles to draw the 2 defenders, and I'm popping that if I'm a shooter. Okay? Or I'm rolling it, and then there's another person coming up, and we're looking at that high-low. So if somebody shows hard, which is one thing we see, if they show hard, we also have what's called the slip. So Bree's back there, depending on how hard, Kiki shows on this, as soon as I see that she's showing hard, I'm automatically releasing. That's a tough thing for the defense to decide who's taking that. It puts pressure on the help defenders.
Okay. And when you're slipping, that is just a read.
That's a read.
100% a read.
And we do make, sometimes the kids, Caitlin does a great job of reading. Some of our kids don't read the slips as well. So we actually have calls for slips.
Okay. Now, Bree, you come off a lot of pick and rolls.
Yeah.
So what do you think about when you're coming off a pick and roll? What's the first thing that you're looking for?
I would say the first instinct, because Coach always says, score. But then after, Caitlin does a great job of popping. So I know when I draw 2 defenders, I can come back to Caitlin. Or for someone like Kendall and Meg, they like to roll, I can come back and hit them on the block. They can go one-on-one.
Okay. Now, for those that are popping or rolling, how much attention do you give the help defense? Do you kind of just pay attention to Bree's defense and your defense? Do you pay attention to the help at all? Like maybe there's an overload, and so you might have some, I guess, might be like suffocated there. Like how much attention do you pay to the help?
Yeah, I'd say when you're popping, you have to look if you really have to pop off the 3-point line as opposed to, it won't be a shot anymore, it's going to be for help. So if they're going to be for a strong double team, then you have to go behind the ball to be a release. Otherwise, you can stay closer to the 3-point line to look for your shot.
Okay, cool. Coach, last question. So when you think of those that run the pick and roll best in the world, when we talk about the old guys, when we talk about the new, what is something that they do very well?
I mean, they play off of each other very well. I think going back to what Caitlin said, to what Kenny said, John Stockton did a great job of recognizing what the opening was. So he knew it was happening because he watched the secondary defender, not the primary defender. The secondary defender is basically going to dictate what's going to be open. So I think for kids out there, is just don't be locked in. Bree did the right thing. Come off that screen looking to score. Defense is going to dictate what the next part of the game is.
Gotcha. All right. Well, it's all about reads here with Coach Gaitley and teaching the pick and roll. Thanks so much for joining me on the court. Next up is Looking Ahead. I'll see you next time.
Time to fast forward here on the Ram with Coach Gaitley, and fittingly joined by head coach. A lot to look forward to in the overall future of this next month of December, but in the immediate future tomorrow, a matchup against Manhattan, a team that's given you trouble over the last 3 times out. What's the biggest thing that they do that makes life difficult for you guys?
I mean, they're very well coached and they play really, really hard, and it's always a big rivalry game. I just don't think we've, in the last couple of years, have played particularly well against them, and I can't put my finger on it. I don't know why, but I'd like to think the kids understand the importance of the rivalry of, we've got the, the Battle of the Bronx, and so there's pride on the line, and so I think our kids will be ready to step up to the challenge.
Looking ahead at this month, Coach, you have the road game against Manhattan tomorrow, but then you've got 4 straight home games. You're only playing 5 games this month. How much of an advantage do you think it's going to be to not have to travel, to not have to stay in hotel rooms this month?
I think it helps a lot when you get home, especially when you're starting to put your best basketball together. I mean, we certainly haven't peaked yet, but we're at least seeing glimpses of what we can be. So I think that being the case right now, I think once we get home, and because then you figure out we have those 2 home games, the 2 tournament games, and then 2 home games in conference. So we have a nice little, nest egg as far as home games are concerned. So, for us, I think it is important that you wake up in your own beds and you're used to your own gym and your own basketballs and things of that nature.
The beginning of that home stretch is Georgetown, a team you guys only put up 38 points against last year. First and only game without Mary Goulding last year. What do you take away from last year's performance going into changing things in year 2 against them?
Try to forget about that game. I mean, my philosophy is always celebrate or suffer to midnight. I suffered a couple of days of that game just because I just don't feel we came to play. Like, losing's part of the game. If you play really hard, the shots just don't go in, I can live with that. But that game, we just didn't show up, and it was unfortunate because it's against a great opportunity to beat a Big East team on their court. So I don't have any doubt in my mind our kids will be ready for this matchup.
How much room do you think this team has to grow in the next few games before you start playing teams in the A-10?
I mean, I think I'm seeing signs. I think that Charlotte game was just a great boost for them to realize this is what we are capable of. Look how we won by 25 on the court of a team that was undefeated. It had some really good road wins and then came back and beat a BC. Probably win that by 10 if we don't shoot the ball well, but it sold them on the fact that we play defense, we're going to be in every game. So we certainly haven't peaked. We've got to get closer to playing a 40-minute game on both sides of the court, but we're not doing that yet. So we're headed in the right direction.
Coach, we talked about identity at Charlotte, and you didn't think this team has established a certain identity, and in your 8 years here, defense has been obviously at the forefront of that. Do you feel like this team is still in the process of establishing their identity, and if it is, which direction do you think it's going?
Absolutely in the process. I mean, it's funny, Mary reminded me, I stay in touch with Mary and Lauren about we talk back and forth, but they were quick to remind me at this point last year, I told them they were the worst defensive team I coached, because they were at that point.
You seem to mention that a lot.
Yeah, but I say that because look where we ended. Like when you look back and see where we started and where we ended, they bought in, and once we bought in, they started to understand. Problem we have 2 freshmen that don't really understand how critical the details yet because they're young. So the understanding of under on drivers and over on shooters and switch guard to guard, this is all new to them because they didn't play this way, so it's a lot of details for them. And so, like, the arm bar and show hands, and, so a lot of it is the more quickly they pick it up, I think the better we're going to be.
The fact that you're throwing freshmen into it so early on, Anna DeWolf, Sarah Carpel, do you think that's going to help them down the road in the season where they can pick up the details, and then by the end of the season, they'll be
Oh,
clicking on all
absolutely,
cylinders?
absolutely. I already see it happening. Like, it's already happening. I can see, with the schedule we played, you're going against some of the top players in the country. The kid we played against Arkansas, she's one of the toughest guards we'll see all year. Probably the toughest guard because she could shoot, she could drive, she could rebound, she was physical. So that was a tough guard. I thought Sarah overall did a pretty good job, and it was defense by committee because we do a lot of switching. So overall, even though the kid ended up with a lot of numbers, she shoots a lot to get her numbers. But there was when we had breakdowns, she made us pay. So I think what they learned is if you know what the strength of a team is, our philosophy defensively is make them do what we want them to do. Great example is Lehigh game. 22 taking that jumper. We went under the screen, which is what we taught, so that she couldn't go over and let her drive. So we went under. She airballed that shot, which gave us that last possession. So if she hits that shot, I can live with that. I can go to sleep at night because we played the odds of what we decided to give up. I get frustrated when we help ball side off shooters and we give up a shot to somebody we had on the scout as a shooter. So it's really attention to details is critical in our system.
5 more non-conference games before A10 play gears up. What's the biggest thing you're looking for in this stretch? Is this more of an evaluation period as you go towards conference play, or is there something else because you're obviously always trying to win in this process?
Absolutely, as far as evaluation, meaning just improving. Just improving in the little areas, really buying into we have to win the battles to win the war. Not talking so much about let's go win this game. It's like, all right, guys, let's go out rebound them. Let's out tough them. Let's set good screens. Let's win the 50-50 game balls. Let's keep them 5 points under their average, which we started to do. The first part of the season we didn't. So you start to see us kind of getting into understanding the importance of really just winning the little battles to win that war.
Coach, looking ahead at the schedule, you're going to have a good amount of time off before the Holiday Classic. Is that an advantage, a hindrance, not being able to play for a couple weeks between that Southern game and then going into the Holiday Classic after Christmas?
You know what? How I look on that, Jimmy, is kind of like when you get the preseason. Like somebody's first, somebody's eighth. It is what it is. So to me, I take the positive. We have time to work on things we need to get better. We'll meet as a staff and say, all right, what do we want to do in this growth period? What do we need to work on? Is it presses? Is it, ball screens? Defensively, what is it? So we'll have time to improve. So I'm going to focus on that being a positive.
Coach probably won't have an episode before the holidays, but any big plans for you during the holidays? Is it a lot of watching tape, or is it a lot of enjoying
Always
it?
a lot of watching tape. Last night got home, started at 7:15, didn't finish till 10:30 of like breakdown stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of work because I'm very focused. Like I want to know what play is going on sideline or out of bounds at the end of the game, so that I feel a lot of assistant coaches, a lot of head coaches want assistants to do it. I'd rather be on top of that. The assistants break down tape too, but I want to know everything that the other team is going to do. So when we come to that timeout, I can tell them what I anticipate. Like I anticipated Lehigh going into that matchup. Didn't know, you don't know for sure, but you think based on tape you saw that that's probably what you're going to see.
Always business, but always time for fun. Coach, thank you so much for coming on the show. We always appreciate having you.
Happy holidays to all the Rams.
Thanks to everyone for tuning in to episode 2 of season 2 of The Ram with Coach Gaitley. And a huge thanks to everyone at BronxNet and WFUV for making this show a possibility. A special thanks to Coach Gaitley and the rest of the Rams for the inside access all season long. Until next time, from Isis Young, my partner Jimmy Sullivan, I'm Jackson Heil. Have a great evening, everybody. The Ram with Coach Gaitley is a production of BronxNet and WFUV Sports.